Hello students, in the previous lecture we have studied about some of the defects of human eye. Today we are going to discuss refraction of light through glass prism. Now let us draw the structure of glass prism first. So let us draw a three-dimensional structure of glass prism. So this is the three-dimensional structure of a glass prism. Let's name it A, B, C, D, E and F. Fine. Now what is glass prism, or what is prism actually? Prism is a homogeneous transparent refracting medium bounded by two non-parallel surfaces, or you can say non-parallel refracting surfaces inclined at some angle. Fine. So prism is homogeneous transparent refracting medium bounded by two non-parallel surfaces or refracting surfaces inclined at some angle. So now look at this AEDB and AEFC. These are two refracting surfaces which are inclined at some angle. Fine. So this is a glass prism. Clear? Now the angle between these two surfaces, this AE is known as refracting edge. This is known as refracting edge. And the angle between these two non-parallel surfaces that are inclined at some angle, this angle is known as angle of prism. If you look at this three-dimensional structure of a prism, it has two triangles, means A, B and C, one triangle, and EDF, second triangle. Fine. It has two triangles and three rectangles. Three rectangles is AEDB, AEFC, and last is the base, that is BDFC. So it has three rectangles and two triangles. Clear? Now let us discuss the refraction of light through glass prism. Fine. So let's draw the 2D structure of glass prism. So here is the 2D structure of glass prism. Clear? A, B, C. Clear? Where A is angle of prism. Fine. Now suppose a light ray incidents on the surface AB. Clear? Now for this surface, the normal means perpendicular is this. Clear? N. So N is the normal for AB. This is the path of incident ray. Fine. We know that when a light ray goes from a rarer medium to denser medium, fine, in this air is a rarer medium and glass is denser medium, the light ray bends towards the normal. So here is the normal, the light ray bends towards the normal. Fine. Now for this surface AC, second refracting surface, the normal is like this. Clear? Now light ray goes from denser medium to rarer medium. Now the light ray will go away from the normal. Fine, we have to remember the rules of refraction. If a light ray goes from rarer medium to denser medium, it bends towards the normal, and the light ray goes from denser medium to rarer medium, it bends away from the normal. Clear? So this light ray is known as incident ray. Fine. The second light ray, this light ray is known as refracted ray, and the third one is known as emergent ray. Fine. This PQ, I'm repeating again, this PQ is incident ray, Q2R is refracted ray, and R2S is known as emergent ray. Clear? Now the angle between incident ray and normal is known as angle of incidence. Clear? The angle between refracted ray and normal is known as angle of refraction. For this surface, this is angle of incidence and this is angle of refraction. Fine. The angle between emergent ray and normal is known as angle of emergence, which is denoted by E. Clear? So now look at this structure. This is the initial path of incident ray. Fine. After refraction through glass prism, the direction of light ray, the path of light ray is this, that is RS. Fine. If you extend this ray like this, so this is the angle by which the ray, the incident ray deviates when it passes through the prism. Means this is the initial path of the incident ray, and when the light ray comes out from the prism, the path is this. So by this angle the light ray deviates, and this angle is known as angle of deviation. Means the angle between the incident ray, which is plotted forward, and refracted ray, which is plotted backward, is known as angle of deviation, which is denoted by symbol D, capital D, or the symbol called delta. Clear? I am repeating again. The angle between the initial path of incident ray and the emergent ray, if plotted backward, is known as angle of deviation, denoted by D or delta. Is that clear? Now let us discuss the factors on which this angle of deviation depends. Clear? Now the factors on which this angle of deviation D or delta depends. Fine. First factor is refractive index. Refractive index of this material. Greater the refractive index, greater will be this angle of deviation. Clear? Means if the density of this material is greater, then the angle of deviation increases. With increase in refractive index of the prism, the angle of deviation increases. Fine. Second one is temperature. With increase in temperature, the angle of deviation decreases, because if you increase the temperature, the particles of the material, of this prism, they move from each other. So if the distance between the particles increases, in that case the density decreases, means refractive index decreases, so the angle of deviation also decreases. Clear? Third, angle of prism. With increase in angle of prism, the angle of deviation also increases. Clear? Fourth one, wavelength of light. with increase in wavelength, the angle of deviation decreases. Fine. If we talk about dispersion of glass prism, dispersion of white light in glass prism, we have 7 colors in that, that is Vibgyor, V I B G Y O R. The maximum deviation is in violet color but least in red. Fine. Violet has least wavelength, so its deviation is maximum. Red has maximum wavelength, so its deviation is least. So we can say wavelength lambda is inversely proportional to the angle of deviation. Clear? So these are some factors on which this angle of deviation depends. Clear? And also one more point is there, that is angle of incidence. Fine. Now let us discuss what is the effect of angle of incidence on angle of deviation. Now let us discuss effect of angle of incidence on angle of deviation. Clear? Now let us discuss what is the effect of angle of incidence on angle of deviation. With increase in angle of incidence, first angle of deviation decreases. Fine. But further increase in angle of incidence results in increase in angle of deviation. Clear? So first, when you increase angle of incidence, the angle of deviation decreases, but if you increase further this angle of incidence, this results in increase in angle of deviation. Let us understand this concept with the help of a graph. If you plot a graph between angle of deviation and angle of incidence, fine, with increase in angle of incidence, first the angle of deviation decreases like this, fine, but with further increase in angle of incidence, the angle of deviation increases. So this angle which is least, or you can say minimum deviation, is known as angle of minimum deviation. Fine. Means to say, till this point the angle of deviation decreases. After this, with increase in angle of incidence, the angle of deviation increases. So this angle is known as angle of minimum deviation. This M denotes minimum deviation. At this point, the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of emergence. Remember this point. When the angle of deviation becomes minimum, in that case, the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of emergence. So let's recall all the factors on which this angle of deviation depends. First, we had studied about angle of prism. second refractive index, clear, third temperature, fourth wavelength, fifth one is angle of incidence. Clear? So these are some factors on which the angle of deviation depends. Clear? Thank you.